welcome back to Book Buzz with Jen and Payne, a podcast focused on romance books. Today we have the pleasure of having Catherine Cowles with us. Catherine is a small-town go-to author for us. Her characters are some of our favorites, and the stories are just so amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Catherine.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been kind of crazy weather here. It was really warm and then it got super cold. It even snowed up in the mountains here, which is
really
crazy. I'm ready for summer, so I've had enough snow.
We've had rain all week and I'm just like, it's been so hot. I'm like, I'm waiting for winter again. And it just literally passed. Yes. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because I came across your books when you released Beautiful Broken Pieces.
Yes.
And then from there, I know you had released Further to Fall.
Yeah, before my first book was Further to Fall, which was technically a standalone, but you see some of the characters from the Sutter Lake series and also a character from the Wreck series in that book.
Yes. So I started by with Broken Pieces, and then I went back and read Further to Fall. But ever since then, I just kept reading through your books. And then I had the pleasure of meeting you in Book Bonanza, which was in 2019.
Yeah, which is crazy that it's been that long. I feel like it was yesterday.
That's what I was about to say. It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've just kept reading your books. I won't say right now which one's my favorite, but I think everybody knows which one's my favorite.
I think I know.
Because it's like I talk about it all the time.
Yay! Can I guess?
Sure.
𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗄𝗃.
Yes. There's something about it. It's so funny. I talk about that book all the time. And every time somebody asks me, which one should I start with? Well, you should start from the start, but just go ahead and start with 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗄 first.
Read that one. I jump around so much as a reader. It's very rare that I have read a series that's like already out in order. I always go backwards, upside down, sideways.
Me too.
Yeah. So I fully support that.
Well, for me, I got into your books. Actually, I think Jen recommended you to me because I just started getting into small town romance. And then Jen was like, well, if you're looking for small town, you should definitely pick up Catherine Cowles' books. And so I did. And the Sutter Lake are my first books by you that I've read. I haven't read your first books yet. So I definitely have to go back and read those. And
it's always hard when people say they're reading my first books. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm a better writer now, I promise.
Yeah, I need to go back and pick those up.
For me, I think from like when she wrote the Sutter Lake series, I think Broken Spirit from that series is my favorite.
I feel like Broken Spirit and 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗀 have similar vibes. You know,
yes,
those two both have little kids in them. Both just the heroes like kind of become dad figures in them. There's like funny moments, you know.
I'm going to jump around and just say that for 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗀, I loved, and I think I've told you so many times, Mia.
Oh, good. She's so awesome.
It's
She's
like, I remember when I finished reading that book, I messaged, I was like, so is she going to get a book? They should totally get a book.
I think I've been asked for all the kids in that series, in that book to have like their own series.
The reason behind that, well, for me, that's the reason I want it. It's because their story was such a tough one. As a family, it was really tough for them. So it would be interesting seeing how they grow up to be.
Yeah.
For me, I'm so curious. I forgot, what was the little boy's name? I forgot his name.
I know, and I'm forgetting now too because I'm so bad, you guys. You have no idea what names. Like I'll name the people the same names, and I'm like, wait, what? I had someone check all my names for me because I get so bad, and because I write so far ahead, I wrote that book in 2020, like towards the beginning of 2020, I think.
Really?
And so it's been.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I can't even remember his name for the life of me. That's so bad, you guys. It's embarrassing.
I remember Mia just because I love that little girl. She was the cutest. It was like so funny.
With her unicorn loves. But
yes.
the little brother, his scene with Griffin.
Yes.
Knocking down the walls.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to tell you. I think that's the reason I would love to see their story, because it's like when you introduce them in the book, they're so closed off. They're scared. They don't know who to trust, what to believe. It's like they just know what's in their little circle. So for me, I was like, that's why I was like, please tell me they're getting a book too.
You never know. I'm not writing it right now, but maybe in the future.
We can talk about it next year, I guess.
Okay.
So jumping back to the start, how was it when you first decided to be an author? What pushed you to say, okay, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to publish it? What pushed you to publish that first book?
So it's kind of a crazy story, but I hurt my back really badly. I got bucked off a horse and ended up having to have a surgery that laid me up for a long time and ended up having a lot of complications. And I was doing a ton of reading. I was reading a book a day. And that's really when I fell in love with romance. I was reading a lot of YA, and then it kind of transferred into romance with Jennifer L. Armentrout wrote a new adult series I think it's called Be With Me. And I loved that series. And I just went down the rabbit hole. And so I was reading a ton of romance. And I just kind of thought, well, now's the time. Like, if I want to try and write a book of my own, I'm not working right now. I have all this free time. I'm just, doing physical therapy. I'm like, that's it. So I made myself a promise. I said, I'm going to write one book. And if I hate it, I never have to do it again, but I'm going to finish one book. I'm determined. So I took a class by Alessandra Torre. She has a how to write your first novel class. She also has a book on how to publish, and they were so hugely helpful. And I wrote that first book and I fell in love with the whole process. And I just kind of kept going from there.
Did you always plan on writing romance? Is that something that you...
No, So I was a journalism and theater major in college. So I had definitely a background in writing, but not in writing novels. Mm-hmm. So I had thought maybe a couple of times about, that would maybe be fun to write a book, but I didn't have any plans and I didn't know what genre necessarily. I think I was leaning more towards YA, to be honest. And then when I really got obsessed with reading romance novels, I was like, and I saw how many people were indie publishing. I was like, I love that they can have control of all of the aspects of their career. They can control the cover. They can decide how many books, how often, what they write about. You lose a lot of that when you traditionally publish. So that was really intriguing to me.
So now that you said YA, will you ever consider writing a YA?
I would love to write a YA. It's just, I just haven't had time. And I don't know if it's something that I would try and traditionally publish or if I would just publish it myself. I have a couple of different ideas kind of in the back of my head. I love young adult paranormal. I love that genre. It's one of my favorite to read. And so I think probably something along those lines. I have an idea for a YA paranormal I'd love to write if I have time. Someday.
I wasn't really into paranormal books. I don't think you would consider Twilight. Will you consider Twilight paranormal?
Yes, for sure. 100%.
I know everybody says that was romance, but I don't really consider Twilight romance. I don't know why. I don't know. But
I think it's young adult romance,
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that was what I read. So after Twilight, I was never really into supernatural or anything like that until I picked up Emily Goodwin's that whole paranormal.
I haven't read her, but you're not the only one who has mentioned her to me, that series, the vampire series.
Yes. Right? Yes. Yeah. It's really good. So now I'm very excited and I hope you do write it because now I'm like obsessed with that little genre. I was like, I need more, but it's so weird for me because I'm very picky as who I read it from. So I don't know. It's
Interesting.
yeah.
So who are your favorites besides her? Do you have any other favorites?
I just downloaded, I forgot the author's name. It's a paranormal book that I seen on Goodreads a lot. I'm gonna look it up and let you know.
Yeah, let me know. I want to see if I should.
And I know that I don't know if that's paranormal, but it's what is it? The Jennifer
L. Armentrout, her fantasy series.
Yes.
I think there are. I haven't read it yet, but I think there are paranormal elements, but it's fantasy. So, but if you also want to read, if you like shifter books, there's an author named Suzanne Wright that wrote 2 shifter series that I'm obsessed with. And it's romance. It's not YA. The first book is called Feral Sins. It's the Mercury Pack and the Phoenix Pack are the 2 different series, and they kind of interweave. It's so good. I think you would really like it.
I need to look into that.
Yeah.
Look, man, I'm so behind on my books. I was like, I'm going to be adding that one.
Here's more.
Just keep adding to it. Just keep adding. So for what advice would you give? I know that as a new author, I know you said that when you hear people reading some of your first book, you're like, no, I personally think from the start, your books have been amazing. And they just keep getting better and better. For me, like I mentioned earlier, 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗵𝐿 is my favorite, but it's like every book that you take out, it keeps better and better. And this is a question that was submitted to us. What advice would you give to a person who's trying to publish their first book, but it's a little bit scared on hitting publish?
Yeah, I think you're always going to be scared. No matter how much time passes, I get nervous every time. This last book that just released a couple weeks ago, I was super nervous. I love this book. I wanted other people to love it. There's no way you're not going to feel nervous. All you can do is make the book the best it can be before you hit publish. So have you heard from beta readers? Have you worked with an editor? Have you gotten it proofed? Have you gone through all the steps that you can go through to make that book the best it can be? If you've done those things, hit publish. Just do it, because no matter what, you're going to learn and you're going to get better. Like with every book, you'll learn something. Like I pick up something new with every book. And if you don't hit publish, then you can't start that process. It's so hard, but there are people who my first book is their favorite book. So that's the other thing I would say to whoever asked the question is, the book that you are going to publish is going to be someone's favorite book. And how freaking amazing is that? Like, what a gift. And so you just have to put the book out there, because there are so many different tastes. We all have different things we love in books. But the beautiful thing about that is no matter the book you write, you will find people who love that book, because if you wrote it because it's something that you want to read, it's something that somebody else wants to read too. I think that's one of the things that I learned, is to trust that the things that I love in books, I can have those in my own stories, and like to trust that voice of the things that I really like to read and like seeing in books. So I think trusting yourself is a big part of the journey too.
I love that.
So what inspires you to write?
A million different things. I feel like every story is a puzzle, and I'm pulling pieces from different areas. Reckless Refuge is the perfect example of that. I had read this article about treating psychopathy in children and teenagers, and it really stuck with me. And I knew I wanted to use that for a backstory for a character. I wanted someone in their life to have dealt with that. And so that was one piece of the puzzle. I had introduced this character, this female character in the previous book. She kind of was mysterious. We didn't really know what her deal was. We knew she was hiding from something, but what was it? And then randomly I'd asked in my Facebook group, what are some unique and cool jobs that people have that would be fun to see in a book? And Monica, who's Night Reads Bookstagrammer on Instagram, she commented being a caretaker of a private island. And something about that just clicked all the pieces into place. And I was like, okay, this is the story. And so I just kind of pull from different areas. It can be from articles I read. It can be from, Monica will send me like videos. She sent me a really cute animal video the other day of something that funny that happened. She's like, this would be great in a book. And I'm like, you're exactly right. I'm going to put that in my little picky bag and pull from it later. So things like that can be so random, you know, movies, TV shows, books. You know, I read a nonfiction book that I really inspired a series that I'll be releasing next year. And so you just never know. It really is pulling strands from all different areas.
How much research do you dive into when you're doing a book?
It depends. So sometimes I'm writing about things that I'm familiar with a little bit. So Beautifully Broken Spirit has a storyline of wild horses, and I knew some about that. I'm a big horse lover. We have a herd of wild horses near where I live. I've been to see them. I have a friend who is really involved in rescuing them. And so I went and spent time with some of her rescues. I asked her a lot of questions, but I knew some of that. And then in Reckless Refuge, the hero is a street artist. He does like graffiti art. And so I watched a few different documentaries before I started writing that book, you know, just kind of getting a feel for what that process might look like. So sometimes I already know a lot of the stuff, and other times I do need to do some research. Ideally I can do it before I start writing, so it doesn't stop me up in my process, but occasionally I'll have to pause and be like, okay, I'm writing this specific scene. I need to know how X, Y, and Z happens. And then I'll just Google. I also have a friend who is an ER and surgical nurse. So I ask her a lot of questions about the medical stuff. I'll be like, okay, I need someone to be shot. I need them to be down for this amount of time. And I need it to be scary for, you know, like, how risky is this? And I'll say, okay, so where should I shoot him? It's really helpful.
I like that. And for when, I know you mentioned that, you know, when you first got into writing, you read a lot of romance. What authors now, or even before you started writing, inspired you to the point that it made you want to write your own book?
That's a great question. I would say the first author romance I ever read was Nora Roberts' Montana Sky. I read it in high school, and I love her books. She writes romantic suspense, and she is my go-to. She releases like one romantic suspense a year, and it's coming up this next week that she's releasing it, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I like have my calendar marked, you know, like, okay, this is what I'm doing all day is reading this book. So she's my number one favorite. Coming into, before I published, I read a lot of Jennifer L. Armentrout. I loved her. I still love her. She is phenomenal. I got really into, so Casey Lynn is an author who writes romantic suspense, and she was someone I just binged her books so fast. And then I realized that she was indie published. And so that was a really big inspiration to me, that she could put these books out herself, and they were phenomenal. And I love them so, so much. And so she's another one. I love Samantha Young, her series set in Scotland and Edinburgh. I love that series so much. And her new book that came out this last week, 𝗺𝗵𝘁𝗵𝘁. Oh my God, it's my favorite book I've read this year. I loved it so, so much. There are just so many authors whose work has moved me in different ways. And one of the things that I think is really special is to identify the different ways. You know, romance can be an escape that's just total, like I can release on the hard things in the world and just be lost in this story. It can teach me something. It can change the way I think about something. It can make me realize someone else's experience and give me a whole new level of empathy for them. There's just so many ways, and I think we should celebrate all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's really important. And so there's so many. I started a book last night by 𝗺𝗵𝗶𝘀 and 𝘺 called Tangled, and there was just this little back and forth banter. It's like a brother's best friend book, and there's a back and forth between the hero and heroine, and it just had me cackle laughing, and it had kind of been a hard day, and I was like, I needed that.
Yeah.
You know, and like I'm so grateful for books that do that, you know.
Yes, and I like that you said that, because I'm going back to 𝗵𝗵𝗁. It's like I read that book when I was in a book slump, so it's like I couldn't pick up. I think we all go through that little stage where you're like, it's just horrible. And I picked it up. I remember I finished that book in one sitting. Like I didn't sleep until I finished it, because I was so into it. And I loved it because, I mean, she was so, Caitlin, is that how you pronounce it? Caitlin. Yeah. She was, in my opinion, for me right now, she was the strongest heroine that you've written because of the circumstances. To it's like her parents, I mean, she was by herself. She was raising these kids. Her mom was a mess. They were alone. And to read that, it might be fiction, but it does give a reader that little push to where it's like, okay, you can do it. You just need a little shove. And that's what I loved about it. And that's why it's my favorites.
So much to me.
And even Griffin, I loved him. He was, I remember I read, I forgot who I was talking to about it. They were like, well, Griffin, he's like, he doesn't take the hint. He's so like, he's going so slow. I was like, you have to understand where he's coming from.
You're defending him. You're taking up his honor.
Don't mess with Griffin. It's like, understand him. So it's like those little things in the characters, especially for me in that book, that it makes you realize it's, you know, sometimes books give you that little shove that you need in your life. So it's like, you might not be going through the characters that you're reading, but it's a book. It's an inspiration. It makes you realize that, you know, things might be tough, but they'll be tougher if you don't do anything about it.
And I think one of the biggest gifts, at least that I receive from books, is making me feel seen, heard, understood. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something about them that you go, me too. Like I have, even if the circumstance isn't the same, you're like, oh my gosh, I have felt that. Mm-hmm. And then it makes you feel not alone. And what a gift. I think that is truly one of the most powerful things about story.
Well, I like that you said that, because like with Griffin, his character, the way I saw it, he thought he isolated himself a lot. He thought he was better off by himself. And I used to isolate myself a lot. So it's like, I saw where he was coming from. And it's like, you know, the more you let people in, you start seeing that, you know, everything's not black and white.
Yeah.
And that's how I took his character to be. Because it's like, me, in high school, I was very, I had friends, but it's like, you keep to yourself. Mm-hmm. You close yourself up. You don't let anybody in. And until you do, it's like your life is black and white. And once you do let those people in, you start realizing that there's so much more out there than you thought there was. Mm-hmm. Now I want to go reread this book for like the 20th time.
I love it.
Is there a setting or place that you haven't based your book in yet and you would love to?
Yes, there is one. And that is Alaska. I am dying to set a series in Alaska, but I also would like to go there first. I've never been there. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to go. I'm fascinated by it. I love reading other books that are set there. I just think kind of similar to an island setting, there's something about it that raises the stakes. Mm-hmm. You know, you can be kind of cut off from a lot of the world. And I love kind of exploring that. There's a Nora Roberts book that's set there that I absolutely love. I would love to. And I want to go visit too.
Every time I think of Alaska, I think of the movie The Proposal.
Oh yeah.
By Ryan Reynolds and Sandra. Yep. And it's like, I'm like, that movie
and
makes me want to go. Yeah. That little forest scene is always the best.
I know. I love it.
So it's like, I hear Alaska and my mind just goes directly to that movie. What is, from all the books you've written, and I know you're going to be like, I can't pick, but from all the books that you've written, who is your favorite hero and who is your favorite heroine?
That's a great question. It is hard because there is something about each of them that I fall in love with. You kind of have to. Whenever I'm writing, I'm always looking for the hook that connects me to them. Something where I'm like, I understand you. This is where we're the same. So, and there are different things about different books that are special to me. Like Beautifully Broken Pieces is really special to me because I put a lot of the grief of like losing my dad into that book. I drew on a lot of like personal experience. So that book will always be special to me in that way. There's something about Jensen. I think she's probably my favorite heroine.
I love her.
I love her. She's strong, yet still in so many ways, like able to be vulnerable. I love her love of horses. That's really special to me. My two favorite heroes are Griffin and Cain. I think Griffin is the number one favorite. Yes. There's something, I love a broody hero. Yes. I love a broody hero. Someone who's broken and tortured. I'm like, yes, just let me love you. So I think they're probably my two favorite heroes or heroine. I have two books that I wrote in the last year that I'm the most proud of. And one is Reckless Refuge that came out recently. And the other is Tattered Stars, the book that is coming out at the beginning of 2022.
I'm so excited for that one.
I'm really excited.
I love the cover.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the cover too. And it's one of these things where sometimes you get like a feeling when you're writing, like this book just feels special. And I felt that writing that book, and it just kind of came like the cover came together. Like, that's my favorite cover that I've done that Hong has done for me so far. And so it, I felt great about the book. I felt great about the cover. And then I ended up getting 2 narrators for the audiobook that were just like on my bucket list to work with. So that felt really special. So it just kind of felt like things coming together in the right way. So I'm hoping that that's a good sign.
From all of your books, which one has been the hardest for you to write?
They're all hard in different ways. I will say Beneath the Wreckage, the book that's coming out in September, I started that book. I had written 20,000 words and I was like, I hate this. I don't like this book at all. I sent the first 20,000 words to my editor and I was like, something is not right. Tell me what's not right. This isn't working. And so we had a long talk about it, and this will probably make you guys laugh. When I first wrote it, the first chunk, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do a heroine who like hasn't had like trauma, like something really horrible happened to her. She's just like, maybe she got cheated on or something, like it's not going to be as heavy. And that's why it didn't work. So I deleted 20,000 words, which was a lot of hours. And I completely started over. I started the book over. And now I love, love, love the book. It ended up being exactly what I wanted it to be. And my assistant just proofed the audiobook for that. And she said it's her favorite of the series. So that made me really happy. So.
I don't listen to audiobooks, but I want to. I need to start listening to audiobooks. And I've been wanting to listen to 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗀 in audiobook. I was like, I need to start off with the book that I like.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look into that.
And the narrators on that book are phenomenal. So that would be a good place to start.
Do you choose your narrators, or how does that work?
It depends on whether I've sold the rights to the audio and a publisher has done the books, or if I'm producing them myself. So Sutter Lake, I sold the rights and I had some say in that and got to help with the casting process, but I couldn't just say, I want this person and I want this person, and they would go and get them. For the Wrecked series and for the Tattered and Torn series, I am producing those audiobooks with a production company called Lyric Audio, which is Andy Arndt's company. She's an amazing, amazing narrator, and she has her own company. And so I have gotten to choose the narrators that I'm working with, and I'm a huge audiobook junkie, and so it's been kind of like a pinch me moment, because I'm like, these are people who I've listened to for so many books. Like, I'm always listening to audio, and I'm like, oh my gosh, now they're reading my books, and it was just such a crazy moment. So I like being able to pick the narrators. It's fun.
I need to start listening to them, because I started recently getting into podcasts, to where a lot of crime podcasts, and I was like, okay, if I get into them, I'm so hooked into them. I'm still listening to the one you recommended me.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I'm like, oh my, and I listen to him before I go to sleep, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm like terrified right now. And I kept thinking, I was like, what did I just hear outside my window?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
So it's like, okay, I love it. So I was like, maybe I need to, because I always say I don't like them, but I was like, I need to stop saying I don't like them if I've never really tried them. But I need to
give yourself a little time to get used to it, because it is different hearing narrators read both like the male and female parts. But I love it. And I'm so busy now that that's how I consume probably 98% of my books, is just, when I'm cooking, when I'm walking my dog, all of that stuff. It's really helpful, or working out or whatever.
I need to start doing that. So I know that you said that when you took off that 20, whatever you had written, the 20K words, how long does it take you to write a book? Is each book the same, or is each book different on how long it takes you?
I've gotten it down to kind of figure out, how long a first draft will take me. And that's usually 6 to 7 weeks, depending on how long the book is. My books are usually between 85 to 90, but sometimes they can be a little longer. Sometimes they can be a little shorter. So it just kind of depends on where I end up. So that's the first draft. I have a really long editing process. I have tried and tried and tried to get it shorter. But for now, I'm just making peace with the fact that it's long. It will go to my developmental editor twice. She'll do the first pass and give me feedback. I'll make changes. She'll read it again, and she'll make sure that those changes work. And then it will go to a copy editor who also does a lot of like continuity stuff, making sure there aren't any plot holes, that kind of thing. And then it goes to 2 proofreaders, and then it goes to audio. So that takes a few months, that editing process. I wish it was faster. So a lot of times when I say like, oh, I hit the end on this book, people are like, well, why aren't you just publishing it? I'm like, well, we've got a lot of things we got to do between now and then. And so I've gotten faster at the writing part, but not so much the editing part.
But I mean, I think at the end, it's whatever works best for you in your books. Yes. That's what matters. So it's, I mean, if that works for you, then that's your easy process, even though it can be long. That's the way you're used to it. So it's okay. And that brings me to asking you, do you get your covers done before you write your book, or is it after you write your book?
It depends on a number of factors. I like to have them done before, because then when I'm writing, like when I was writing Tattered Stars, we hadn't decided which photo we had like a couple of photo options, and we hadn't decided which one. So I was like highlighting every time I described the character's hair color or eye color, because I was like, what if this doesn't match? So I would much rather have, I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is how hard it is to find photos. You guys probably know because you do edits. It is so hard to find good photos. And for someone who writes more emotional books, it's really hard to find photos where the people aren't super smiley. You know, I'm always looking for tender moments, you know, moments of intimacy that aren't super sexy, like, you know, forehead touches, cuddling, you know, like his arms are around her, or just the way their heads are bent to each other. Something about that feels vulnerable and authentic. And so I would love to find photos before I write the book, but that doesn't always happen. Didn't happen for Tattered Stars. I did have the cover done, or knew at least the photo for book 2 and book 3 in that series before I started them. And I have book 4 set. I don't have the photo for book 5. So hopefully I find a photo before I start that. And with the Wrecked series, I think some were done before and some weren't. It just kind of depended on where I was in the design schedule.
But it's funny because Payne mentioned once that, and I agree, your covers are so pretty. And I think it's because you always add this texture to them, like the watermark, and there's something about it that they seem so pleasing in a way that I like them. I love them. And every time you post a picture of the spine, I'm just like, oh, I haven't even seen the front cover and I already like it.
I love it. My designer is so awesome. Her name is Hong Lee, and she is just incredible. She's an artist. She does so many different romance authors covers, and she and I work really well together. She really gets me and kind of the look I'm going for. I'm always trying to convey that this is a love story, but I would also like for the cover to be a little bit unique. And she does a really good job of blending those things together.
And I think it is, they are unique. And it's like, and it's so funny because I even mentioned this to Payne. They go with the story so well. The little details on them, they go so well with the story. And that's what makes it so unique.
I'm so glad.
I remember when I first started reading, some covers would not match the story.
It's true.
And I'm just like, and I remember, me and Payne, when we first started reading, we would be like, okay, so the book describes the character being this way, but the cover looks like this. I was like, it's very irritating me.
It's because it's so hard to find those dang photos. And so they're like, oh, I already wrote the book, but I found this great photo finally. And so I'm going to use it. Hopefully people won't notice.
And then here comes people like us. And yeah.
Thank you for paying attention.
But it's like, me and Ping have always said it. Your covers are some of our favorites. I love the spines. It's something about a book spine that gets me all the time.
I love it too. It's fun to look at, all kind of lined up.
And I think what you do, it's your color scheme too.
Yes.
It's each book has a different color, and I love it. And I always try to guess, her next color is going to be green, or her next color is like. And they're so good. I love them, and they are some of my favorite.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the covers right now, and I'm just gonna say 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗄𝐿 and Broken Life have been some of my favorite.
Yeah,
and Perfect Wreckage.
Yeah, I think I'm like peeking over to my bookshelves. I think in Sutter Lake, I think Broken Life is my favorite. And then in Wrecked, it's Reckless Refuge because I love pink.
Yes.
I love pink flowers.
And I take it back. Spirit is one of my favorite too.
Yeah.
That's not counting the new covers. Not counting the new covers. So
those aren't on your bookshelf yet, so they don't count.
Yes. Yeah. I'll do an updated one after I have those. So about Refuge, I know you mentioned a little bit how you came up with that story, but it was so different than what you usually write. It was suspenseful. It was darker. It was very, I remember, I think I told Payne, I was like, it wasn't how I thought it was, because I was used to, like you said, your books always have that little dramatic suspense to it, but it's always that little softer tone to them. Yeah. And with this one, it was I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen? I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, I feel so scared right now.
One of my friends called me and she was like, I was scared to go to sleep last night reading this. I was like, sorry.
But it was good because it was so different. And I love when, that author surprises you to where it's not what you expect, but it's what you need. Mm-hmm. And I think this book, it is what it is. It's just that, like, Shay has this background to, you feel so bad for her. She's scared. She's trying to keep to herself because she wants to protect those around her. And here comes Brody, and it turns her life upside down. She turns his life upside down too, because he's running away just like she is. Mm-hmm. But what I was scared when she was because she kept having her flashbacks, and I think that's where you see the difference as well. Because you understand where she's coming from. For Brody, I was very intrigued. Mm-hmm. Because at first I was like, what if it's his best friend, the one that's behind everything?
So glad you thought that, because I wanted people to think that, but not many people have been like, oh, I thought it might be him. And I wanted people to think it might be him. So I'm glad.
Because in the beginning of the book, when they were having that conversation and his assistant was like, his assistant and him were bickering, I was like, it has to be the friend. Like, it can't be. My mind didn't go to the assistant. My mind was like, most maybe people
did, but I'm like you. I'm like, I wanted to think maybe the friend.
Yes. So that's why and then I won't go into details in case somebody hasn't read it, but there was a scene where I was like, maybe it's her. Maybe it's her. But it's crazy because then you throw a twist on there that I never saw coming. So it was very shocking. That I remember I told Pang, I was like, holy crap, this just took a turn that I didn't even see coming. Yeah. So what can you tell us about writing that book? How was it going into it?
So it did change from the first draft to the second draft of like how involved the different people were in what was going down, is what I'll vaguely say. And how I feel about kind of suspense and twists in my books is I don't want to force it. Like, there are some writers who love the twist and love to fool people every time. To me, for like the kind of romantic suspense that I write, the focus is always going to be on the relationship. It's always more about the emotional connection between the two characters. It's just that the suspense plot line is heightening that, and raising the stakes. You don't know what's going to happen. It can bring different things out in people. So I try not to force it, but if a twist comes to me, I love when that happens. Mm-hmm. And so it happened in this book. It happened in Beautifully Broken Pieces. There was a good twist that was fun, really fun to write. And that kind of just came to me naturally. So when it comes, I love it. If it doesn't, that's okay too. So it just kind of depends. And I do kind of let the story go kind of where it needs to go,
Did you have Brody's character? Did you know what his story was going to be like going into the book, or did it change as you started writing it?
I needed a reason for him to leave New York. Like, so why doesn't a successful artist in New York, which obviously that's way more his scene than a middle of nowhere island off the coast of Washington State. So I knew I needed a why. And so I just kind of started spitballing ideas. Why could he want to leave? And I watch a lot of like Criminal Minds. I love reading or listening to true crime podcasts. I love all of that stuff. So there's so many different, you know, kind of darker things rolling around in my head. So it just so happened that I got this idea for him that I'm not going to say it because just in case people haven't read it, but I got his backstory idea, kind of just shuffling things through of like, maybe this would work, maybe that would work. And I love the idea of crime kind of combining with his art because it's so personal to him. And so that really can get in someone's head. And that was really interesting to me to explore. So it kind of layered, like I got piece by piece by piece. And the further along I got with the story, the more detailed the backstory kind of became.
And with 𝗁, I know she came up in Palace.
Yep.
Did her story change from when you started writing her to when you got to her book? Because I know you introduced her in Palace as this quiet, closed off character. Was her story was always the same, or when you started writing it, did it change as you went into the book?
So when I first was planning on writing the Rex series, it was just going to be 3 books. It was going to be the 3 friends, the 3 best friends, and that was going to be it. But then all of these characters kind of kept tugging at me. I really wanted to write Hunter's book kind of from book 1. I was like, I really want to write this book. And I kind of had some ideas for him. And so I was like, hey, I know I want it. So that's at least 4. I'm like, it would be nice for it to be 5. And I had this idea for this backstory for a heroine. And so when I introduced her, I knew that she had that backstory, but that was as far as I had gotten. And then it kind of all started coming together piece by piece.
It's very interesting. I loved it. It was very, like I said, it was very suspenseful. And it was surprising because I didn't think it was going to go the way it did.
Yay.
So I remember when I finished it, I texted Payne. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just read?
Just messing with your mind a little.
And I do love also how you bring back the character from the previous book. So it's like they all come together to being, she was the outsider, I would say, from the whole group.
For sure.
And they end up becoming this whole pack of friends. And I loved seeing that. I loved how they had each other's backs. And I'm very excited for the Hunter's book.
Yeah, Hunter. Yeah.
And I'm very curious about him. When his release?
It's September 21st. You're like, I don't want to wait.
Is his, I know you can't say much, but is his suspenseful as well, or is it more lighthearted?
It is suspenseful, but it's more a mystery. I'm trying to think how to tease this. The prologue of that book is one of my favorites from the series. His heroine is someone we haven't met, but you meet her obviously in the prologue. And she has a tie to Anchor Island that you learn in that prologue. And so there is a mystery that they are kind of trying to uncover together. So there definitely, I mean, there's always going to be suspense in my books. It's not as, I mean, it's dark, but it's not as dark as Reckless Refuge, I would say. I think it's a blend of, what would I say it's most similar to? I don't know. I think because Hunter has been through so much in the first 4 books, he's gone through some hard stuff, and people he thought he could trust, he couldn't trust. And that has really left an emotional scar on him. And his heroine has been through something that has left an emotional scar on her. And so their story is really about healing those together and they're kind of making realizations about life together. They're coming to healing things that needed to be healed and realizing kind of how they can proceed going forward in a better way. I know this is not really
no, and it's good that you said that, because I feel that in Refuge, towards the end, he comes up and he talks to 𝗭. And you do see that broken in him. I felt it when he came on. I was like, he feels so out of place. I feel that he's lost, and it's interesting because I'm curious to see what he has in store.
He and his heroine have great banter. Like, she's like a spitfire, kind of like Jensen is, you know. And their first meeting, it's my favorite first meeting I've ever written. It's really fun. So there's like these moments of like, it's kind of like they have that bantery chemistry, you know, but then there's also moments of like really heavy emotional, you know, going through some like revealing the stuff that they've both been through.
So would you consider it a friends to lovers or an enemies to lovers?
I would consider it actually a workplace romance.
Oh.
And he owns a construction company. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, that's interesting.
I'll give you the exclusive tease. She has bought a resort and he is doing the renovations on that resort, on the island. And so they are like working together in a lot of different ways. And it's really fun.
So are you sure it can't come out like next week? Surprise live.
I have to say, for your books, I love how they build their friendship first, and then they go into, and then they're going to their relationship. I seriously think a relationship needs to be built up from friendship first. And so I love the way how you always do that in all of your books.
Thank you.
I don't know, because I think it's more emotional the way how you did it. So I've always enjoyed reading that part of your books, and with all those suspense, add it up even more. So I love it.
Thank you. I feel like I want to know why two characters belong together more than just, oh, they have amazing chemistry and they want to get it on. I need to know, like, why are these two broken people perfect for each other, and like in their brokenness, like they can kind of help each other heal and, you know, make each other better and all of those wonderful things. So I'm so happy that you like that part of it. That means a lot to me.
And I like that she said that, because they never feel rushed. I've read some books where it's like Payne says, they jump from strangers to lovers, and it feels really rushed. And I feel that once you build that friendship, it adds to the suspense and the chemistry that you're expecting, you know, the characters to have. And I never feel that your books rushed into anything.
Thank you.
I like seeing that little, you know, I might go crazy, like, I want them to get together already, like 𝗵𝗵𝗁, but it takes time.
And I do like to kind of keep people on their toes about like when it's going to happen, because sometimes it's like 𝗵𝗵𝗁 where it's like way towards the end, and then sometimes it's like Perfect Wreckage where it happened pretty early. Like, I can't remember, I got a message from an ARC reader on that book and they're like, wait, oh my gosh, they're like getting it on kind of fast. And I was like, just keeping you on your toes.
Well, wasn't it Jensen and Tuck?
Yes, was another one
that was like a slow burn. No, was it?
No, I think, was it? No, they happened pretty early. I think it was Life, the book before, where it was like that was like very slow.
I get those mixed, because I haven't read them in a long time, but I remember one of those was a slow burn. Yeah, and I was like, okay, get together, and then they got together. I was like, oh my god, it was perfect. It's like that's why she made them take forever, because it's like when they did, it was so perfect.
It just depends on the characters' dynamics, you know, and it depends on what they've been through and how they're kind of thrown together. So like for someone like 𝗭in Reckless Refuge, it's going to take some time for her to let down her walls and to trust with someone, you know, both her, you know, her heart and her body, you know, in a lot of ways, because she had some trauma and scars that was kind of, you know, tough for her to show someone else. So it just kind of depends. I don't have a hard and fast rule, you know, like, oh, the 50% mark, this is when they get together. You know, it changes every book.
It's so funny because with 𝗭, when we see what happened to her, like the beginning of the book, like right from the start, in the beginning of the book, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, it's weird to explain, because when she was explaining how scared she was, like remembering everything that happened, I was freaking out. And it was like, is this how she feels? It's like, it's so scary, because I get why she wanted to take everything, you know, slow. We're just friends. I'm here to do this and this and that. And you get it. So it's like, you're not rushing anything. They became friends and then they became more. And with her, I get it. I felt so bad for her. It's like, I was so scared.
She went through it.
Yeah, like the beginning, I was like, am I watching Law and Order? It's like, it literally feels like I'm watching Law and Order.
I love
it. Because I love stuff like that. I love crime shows, and I'm addicted to SVU. That's what it literally felt like, an episode of SVU with that start. So I was like, oh my gosh. Then I think I texted Payne. I finished the prologue, and I was like, girl, oh my gosh. Like, it is crazy.
Yes.
Prepare.
Yes. I was like, just when I thought I knew what the book was about, it was like I threw all of that out the window, and I'm going into this like with my heart beating out of my chest, like what is going to happen. Like, and I think I mentioned it because I read the prologue right before we filmed a podcast episode. And I told her in the podcast, I was like, right when I finish this, I'm going to go sit on my bed and I'm going to read. I was like, okay, we need to finish this because I need to know what's going to happen.
So I don't have to be scared anymore.
Like, I left her in a place where, like, she's going to die. What's going to happen? So that was interesting. And I love that. It's with her, I get it, because you do take your characters in this journey they have to find themselves first. They have to experience and realize so many things before they do anything. And even before, when they do get together pretty soon, it's very in a way where they are still going through some stuff, but they're working through it together. And I love that.
I think it's important, at least it is to me, for the healing not to be dependent on the other person.
Yes.
For the other person to reveal things and show them things about life that becomes part of their healing process.
And I love a strong heroine. I love a strong heroine. It's like, I don't want to read books and it's me and Payne always say this, we don't want to read a book where the heroine is like, gets told what to do, and it's, you know, her feelings don't matter, it's whatever. We love a heroine who is strong, fierce, sassy, works her stuff out on her own, finds herself. And I love that. I love seeing, as a woman, you want to see, even in fiction, you want to see women succeed and grow to be this fierce person that they can be. So I love that. All your heroines, they're so sassy, and I love them, because towards the end of the book, you're like, oh, I love her.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting and important to explore all of the ways in which women can be strong, because it doesn't look the same. It's not always about getting up in someone's face and yelling at them. Sometimes that is how it is, you know, as putting someone in their place. But sometimes there's really quiet strength, you know. Sometimes there's just a million different ways for that kind of strength to manifest itself. And I really like having heroines where it doesn't always look exactly the same. It can be different. And I think that's important that we celebrate our uniqueness.
Yes. I love that. Women supporting women.
Amen.
And their fierceness.
And all the ways they can be.
Yes.
Well, we kind of talked about your next upcoming book, but can you give us a little bit about the Tattered Stars series?
Or Broken Redemption.
Oh yeah. So I'm spanning 3 series kind of towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. So first up, we have Beneath the Wreckage that we kind of talked about. That's a little bit office place romance in a kind of a different way, not a corporate office, but an office romance that has mystery and all sorts of intrigue and really fun secondary characters in that book. So that's going to wrap up the Wrecked series. And then we have Beautifully Broken Redemption, which is a story that just has kind of been niggling at me since I finished the Sutter Lake series. There was a character in Beautifully Broken Control named Anna who worked at the shelter with Kennedy. She was kind of Kennedy's right hand a little bit, helping her. Or she wasn't Kennedy's right hand, she is now, but she was Kennedy's friend and kind of ran the show a little bit over there. And that is it was so fun to write. It is a marriage of convenience story. And I have been wanting to write one of those forever. There are also some cute kids in that book.
My favorites.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like this one, Jan. I think it's gonna be up your alley. It does kind of have some 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗀𝗀 vibes in some ways, and it is marriage of convenience, wealthy hero who is helping our heroine out of a jam. I had so much fun writing it.
I'm getting so close to spamming you with, please, can you send it, please? I promise not to spill the beans.
I promise. And then we're going into Tattered Stars. And so when is this podcast going to come out? Because I'm going to try and see if I can spill some beans that I haven't spilled anywhere about
Wednesday.
Tattered Stars. It's coming out on Wednesday. I think, okay, I'm just going to say, if you have not read Reckless Refuge, plug your ears. But Tattered Stars, the heroine of that book is 𝗵𝗶𝘁, who was Evergreen, the friend who Shay was messaging.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
In that book, it's her story and it's her going back home and confronting all the stuff that she was hiding from.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm so excited. And when she came up, when we met her, I was very curious about her. I'm like, is that who, the heroine is running from? Is she legit? I was very, curious about that.
I know, which I wanted you to think. So I'm glad you thought that.
I was like, I don't know if I trust it because you hear about a lot of, online messaging. You never,
you never know who you're talking to.
Yes. So I was very like, is she legit? Is she a real person? So I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's fun. So you get a little, just like, you don't see them in the book, but they're messaging in her book. And it has a really unique premise. The hero and the heroine know each other from something that happened in their childhoods. I'm not going to say what. And you'll find out in the prologue. And they have not seen each other since she was, I think, 11 or 12. And it was something big and kind of traumatic that happened. And they see each other for the first time when she comes back.
Catherine, you're killing me. Like, I love this dying.
I will tell you, it is my favorite book that I've written.
Really? I am so excited. Like, I need this year to go by so fast because I need these books like in my life ASAP.
Oh my gosh. That is the one downside about writing ahead, is that I get really excited and then I'm like, I just want everybody to read it right now.
I'm so excited for that one now, because I was very towards the end of, Refuge. I was like, I want to know more. I did want to know more about her.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yes, because she does. I loved how she would push 𝗂. She's like, get it, girl. Like, just go for it. Yeah. And it's like, what is she hiding from? What? Because, someone who is messaging another person and they're going through some stuff and they don't disclose information, they're just there for each other. Yeah. It's intriguing. So I was once I knew that she was legit, I was like, okay, like I wanted to know more about her. And I am so excited. When does that one come out?
It comes out February 1st.
Oh my God. That is like still a long way.
But I'm going to be doing some Goodreads giveaways and other giveaways, Catherine, in between. So.
I suck at Goodreads giveaways. Like, I never win. So my best guess is I won't get until February 2022.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's always funny when they send me because you get like an email that's like, your winners have been chosen or whatever. And whenever it's a name that I recognize, I always get so excited. I'm always like, oh my gosh, I recognize this person from my reader group, or, I know their name, and I get so excited. So that should give you hope that there are probably, like every other giveaway I do, there is at least one person that I recognize that I'm like, oh, okay, I know this person.
And that person isn't me. So I suck at giveaways. So I'm so, man. Oh man. Now I'm so sad. Why is are you sure it can't be released this year?
I mean, like, trust me, there was a time where I was like, I just want to put it out because I just want people to love it. But I got in like a weird, I actually wrote Tattered Stars before I wrote Beautifully Broken Redemption. Because I was only going to write this 5th Sutter Lake book if I had enough time, like at the end of my year. And so I just I wrote Tattered Stars and then jumped back. And so they're coming out of order in a way. So.
But I'm so excited to see you go back into that world because I think that it's every time I finish a book, I'm always like, I want more. It's very nice seeing you create this new world and now going back.
It's fun. It was harder than I thought, though, because I had to go back and really pay attention to like, okay, like when were people getting pregnant and how old were kids? And I had this chicken scratch like sheet of paper that was like, okay, they're this age there and then this age here, and then what about now? And because there is a time jump like between the last book, the epilogue of the last book, and the start of book 5. It's after that epilogue, and there was a time jump with the epilogue too. So you do get to see those characters that we love, being parents, and there's, a couple little funny scenes where you get a few sightings of 𝗵𝗵𝘁, the grandma. And
I loved her.
She's the best.
She's so crazy.
It's so funny. I get a lot of asks for her book.
Would you ever write it?
I wouldn't write a full book, I don't think.
Novella.
But maybe like a short story or a novella or something. You never know.
It could be an email exclusive.
There you go.
Like a newsletter.
Yeah. Must find out to receive.
We need some cute, funny newsletter stories. That's so exciting. I'm so excited for these books that are coming.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you guys are excited. And I'm so grateful for all the support that both of you show me. Your graphics and your photos are just incredible. And they make me so excited every time I see them. I can't even tell you. And I know they take so much time, and you guys just have such incredible talent. And I'm so grateful.
Well, we're grateful for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're so excited for the books that are coming out. I, for one, am going to try so hard not to like spam you and be like, open another Goodreads giveaway, open another one.
Well, there's one coming. There's one coming for Tattered Stars soon. I think in like a couple days.
Don't share it anywhere. I remember you posted the link somewhere and I was like, shh,
don't, only 3 people are going to enter and that's it.
Like, don't spread the word. But I'm so excited, and hopefully when we'll see each other again, Book Bonanza next year.
Wait, are both of you gonna go?
I'm trying to convince Payne. I am. That
Payne, where do you live?
In California.
Okay. Where in Cali?
The Central Valley.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I used to live in LA, so.
Oh.
Why'd you move? Do you miss LA?
I miss the food and I miss friends, but that's it. I lived there for almost 10 years and there were a lot of things I loved about it. It was really fun to live there in my 20s, but I just hit a point where that was the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted quiet. I wanted, fresh air.
Yeah.
Nature. So I moved to a small town in Oregon and it has all of those things.
I love that. Small towns are so peaceful though. Sometimes you need that nice and quiet.
Yeah.
That's why I was like on weekends, almost every weekend I go to my dad's land over there because it's like an hour and a half from where I live.
Oh, I didn't know it was so far.
Yeah, it's like an hour and 15. Yeah. And I go visit my horses and my lambs, just especially my horses. So I get it. It's very peaceful and it's quiet, but with my allergies, I'm always like dying. So Payne
like a breathing mask.
Yeah. Payne is like, stop going.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for joining us today. And we cannot wait to share all these amazing releases that you have coming for us. I'm, for one, so freaking excited. I wanted this year to go super slow. Now I want this year to go super fast so we can get these books.
Love it.
And you'll hear from us when the next one comes out. We're going to be like, oh my gosh, what did you do?
Yay!
But again, thank you so much and can't wait for your books. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us today on our podcast. We had so much fun talking about her previous books, her recent release, and her upcoming books. If you haven't picked up her new book, I highly recommend you to, especially if you love romantic suspense, because that suspense will keep you at the edge of your seat.
We do have a signed paperback giveaway for Refuge. We are going to be giving that one away in our Instagram. We're going to be adding a Instagram post, and all you have to do is comment on the post, follow Catherine and follow us, BookBuzz Podcast, and her Instagram handle is Catherine Cowles Author. We don't know when we're going to post the giveaway yet. We'll probably announce that next week. So make sure you're following her because she has some amazing books coming that I am dying for now. So make sure you're following her so you can check that out. And if you do have any questions about the giveaway, just send us a message and we'll answer that for you.
We'll be back next week to talk about some of the arts that we just finished reading. And you do not want to miss out on these arts because they are amazing. They are phenomenal. So do come back.
And guys, I'm supposed to get a certain arc that I've been dying for. next week. So we're definitely going to talk about that.
So make sure you tune in next week. Have a great rest of the week. Bye.
Bye.